So tell me, how does a stock? So you don't, if you go to a wedding and somebody murmurs the name of a stock in your ear, it will not land up in your small cap portfolio tomorrow morning.
And
Sure?
a lot of people murmur stock.
Yes.
Yes, so promoters overstate earnings because when they want to kind of raise money through either debt or through equity.
You can't buy.
Any stock that we have to buy, we have to take approval of our legal and compliance officer. And so most of us don't want to get, see, because our reputation and our careers are too important. And we are simple people with simple lives.
Yes.
The second, आपका तो अपना एक्सप्रेस है ना. Say you have less nice roads than Nagpur, ये तो गडकरी जी का वो है तो हाँ, this is road capital. So बॉम्बे टू पूना जाना है.
Okay.
कुछ दिन ऐसे होते हैं जब हाईवे क्लियर होता है, रोड बहुत अच्छी होती है, मौसम बहुत अच्छा होता है, ट्रैफिक नहीं होता, तब आप क्या करेंगे गाड़ी का? आप स्पीड बढ़ाएंगे, है ना? लेकिन कुछ टाइम ऐसा होता है जब बारिश होती है, रोड पे जैम होता है, खराब हो जाती है, पॉटहोल होते हैं, तब आप क्या करेंगे? स्पीड घटाएंगे. तो बैथ ऐसे ही करता है इसका.
Hello and welcome everyone to AUM Finance Podcast. This podcast discusses the first principles of investing and is for informational purpose only. We intend to add to the body of knowledge. Please consult your financial advisor before taking any investing decision.
So Sahil, let's come back.
Yeah.
So tell me, how does a stock? So you don't, if you go to a wedding and somebody murmurs the name of a stock in your ear, it will not land up in your small cap portfolio tomorrow
Absolutely.
morning.
And
Sure?
a lot of people murmur stock.
Yes. Okay. So and you would be a flavor of a season in wedding, right?
Yeah, especially when
So how does a stock enter a typical mutual fund manager's portfolio? कितना मेहनत करना पड़ता है उस stock को?
So, I mean, see, we have a process known as FAIR framework.
Yeah.
F stands for forensics, where we do accounting quality checks.
So forensic is, तो ये आप मेरे को शेरलॉक होम की याद करा रहे हो.
हाँ, correct.
हाँ. आप शेरलॉक होम जितना डिटेल में जाते हो, मैनेजमेंट, प्रोमोटर के बारे में you take out all the possible information. That is what forensic is.
Yes. So it is more about accounting quality checks, where we kind of look for companies which are pilfering cash out of their either balance sheet or either out
Pilfering is stealing.
stealing money out of their balance sheet or profit and loss statement, or they are overstating their earnings. So promoters also overstate. Yes. So promoters overstate earnings because when they want to kind of raise money through either debt or through equity, to get loans or through to raise external capital. So we follow certain ratios, balance sheet ratios, profit and loss ratios, and do certain amount of channel checks where we come to know in most of the cases that there is understatement or overstatement of profit.
साहिल, आप ये बोल रहे हो हिंदी में कि अगर कोई प्रोमोटर चोर है,
हाँ.
तो आप पकड़ लोगे उसको.
Yes.
Other things being equal, more often than not.
More often.
You will catch a promoter who is window dressing a balance sheet or a P&L account.
Yes.
You have a team for that. तो वो आपका first check है.
That is the first check.
प्रोमोटर के शर्ट पे कोई दाग नहीं चाहिए.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Then
But I must just tell you here that nothing is black or white, right? There will be different shades of gray, and we have to draw a line, right? So it will not be that anyone is spick and span in terms of the capital allocation.
Point taken. Point.
Right? So we have a team for that, and internally all the analysts who would be looking at a particular stock, they would go through these capital allocation checks or the accounting quality checks for any of these companies. Then the second abbreviation, the second letter stands for acceptable price. A stands for acceptable price, which is nothing but we typically want to buy companies which are similar kind of businesses with similar quality of management at a price which is lower or relatively valuations are more comfortable.
Sahil, what you are saying is पहले management check किया. अगर management ethical नहीं, if the management is not ethical,
फिर तो
you
बात
are
ही
not
नहीं
going
है.
to bet the money,
फिर तो
right?
बात ही नहीं है.
फिर बात ही वो shareholder minority के लिए पैसा नहीं बनाएगा. Second is if the business, you talk about business also.
So that is the last letter, which is robustness of the business.
Yeah.
So there we kind of look for businesses which have leadership qualities or they are growing faster than the industry.
Yeah.
And ultimately it has to translate into return on capital and cash flows.
Okay.
Right? Because that is what businesses are meant to do.
They're supposed to make money.
Cash register ringing.
Yes.
You are showing profit,
but
but
पैसे
it
नहीं
is
आ
not
रहे।
showing in cash profit. So something is wrong.
Absolutely. So there are, I have seen there are a lot of brands, and when you kind of hear about brands, you typically say that they would be making 30, 40, 50%
All
ROC.
brands are making money.
Yes,
but
but that is not the case. They
there is one reason, Sahil, for that is you and me always buy brands when there's a super sale. Sale के अलावा there are many brands we don't buy unless there is a sale.
Absolutely. So that could be one of the reasons. And the third is the acceptable price, which I talked about, where you want to buy the same kind of robust business or the same kind of quality of management at a relatively better price.
Okay.
And the last is the I, which is ESG informed. So we don't believe that as of today there are companies in India which are ESG compliant.
Can you define ESG?
So ESG is basically your environment, social and governance aspect.
You will not invest in a company जो environment which is harming the environment, which is doing something bad to the community, society in general, okay, or not breaking any rules.
Yes.
So
So
be at least aware कि ये साहिल सेठ की जो एक black and white दुनिया नहीं होती, तो if we want to be aware कि जिन companies में हम invest कर रहे हैं उनका ये how do they look on these things, because ये बातें important होती जा रही हैं.
Or, and I think in the long run, a company which because a corporate operates in the very society we live in,
Correct.
in the very economy
If it's
that we live
unfair
in,
to
it is
stakeholders.
unfair, or in the long run it is not sustainable. You cannot be a wealth creator if you are harming
Yeah.
somebody out there.
So how it's treating its stakeholders is very important.
Okay. All the stakeholders, yeah.
more importantly, directionally, we are looking at how the company is complying in terms of ESG. Because as of today, we don't believe that there are most of the companies are not compliant with ESG in India, right? Whether it is environment, social or governance. Right? Governance, maybe a lot of that, those kind of companies.
कोई कंपनी कोई गवर्नमेंट रूल भी तोड़ता है, ओके, लेट्स से इट्स नॉट पेइंग टैक्स और एम्प्लॉइज का प्रोविडेंट फंड में कुछ इशू आ रहा है, यू विल नॉट एंटरटेन, यू विल नॉट एंटरटेन दैट कंपनी. सो टिपिकली साहिल कितने साल ट्रैक करते हो बिफोर अ स्टॉक एंटर्स योर पोर्टफोलियो?
So, I mean, see, we all of us who are analysts and who are fund managers, we typically have an experience of more than 15 years, right? And so we have tracked this kind of companies over last so many years. So that is the experience that we kind of bring on table. Let's say if there is an IPO company or company which has listed for last 3 years, I mean, there is so many years we can track for those particular companies, but at least for the company which are there, have been there for a very long period of time, that is where we have a long history of tracking those kind.
One of the good things है कि एक एनालिस्ट को आफ्टर ट्रैकिंग अ सेक्टर फॉर इयर्स एक सेक्टर की पकड़ हो जाती है
जी
कि यहाँ कौन झूठ बोल रहा है, यहाँ
Right.
कौन कैसा है. इतनी बार वो कंपनी रिजल्ट्स रिपोर्ट करती है तो आपको एक आई थिंक दैट इज व्हाट
If you
कम्स
go
विद
around in a friend
एक्सपीरियंस.
circle, you know some people, right?
यू नो ना
Yeah.
कि दोस्तों में
हाँ.
कौन वो है,
हाँ.
किसकी क्या
कौन झूठ बोल रहा है, कौन सच बोल
15
रहा
साल आप किसी को जानोगे तो आप
है. Yeah.
which is why it is so important.
That is why I individually, no matter how brilliant I am, no matter how much IQ I have, no matter what financial education I have, if I start tomorrow vis-a-vis somebody like Sahil, somebody like you, I'll always have a disadvantage.
एंड ऑल्सो आपने 15 साल काम करके गलतियां भी की है.
जी.
यू इन्वेस्टेड विद बैड पीपल, उससे भी इंसान सीखता है.
And you learn from that.
इट्स लाइक यू लेंड मनी टू फ्रेंड्स हु हैव नॉट पेड.
So
नाउ
then
यू आल्सो
Radhika, let me turn the question.
हां.
Don't mutual fund make mistakes? Forget mistakes. Mistakes you can make. Don't you make blunders? Or is there a mechanism where you cannot make a blunder?
I think, see, we all make mistake. I'll tell you what the difference between a mistake and a blunder is. It's a very good question.
Yeah.
Mistake is, साहिल ने कोई कंपनी देखी, he thought कि बिजनेस अच्छा है, ये कंपनी ग्रो करेगी, इन्वेस्ट किया, नहीं करी, that is a mistake. It is a mistake of judgment. What is a blunder? A blunder is something that is wrong, that you would feel very bad about doing. Blunder is उसको कैश नहीं होल्ड करना था, उसने कैश होल्ड कर लिया. ब्लंडर इज उसने किसी ऐसे प्रमोटर में इन्वेस्ट किया जो चोर है, जो कंपनी से बिल्कुल पैसे निकाल रहा है और जो absconding हो गया.
Okay.
Say you were discussing this example, gave money to a company and the promoter ran away, making the company khali and ran away and absconded from India. That I think is something
That is a blunder. So you don't make blunders.
We try to avoid. I think in our history, 5-6 years history of working together, we haven't made blunders. Mistakes everybody makes. Because if you don't make mistakes, I don't believe that. गलतियां करो. In fact, most good fund managers उनका रेशियो 65-35 होगा कि 65 करेक्ट 35 रॉन्ग। यू वुड थिंक कि 95-5 होगा कि 95 मैंने सही पकड़ा। ऑल यू नीड टू 65-35, यू विल बी वेरी सक्सेसफुल अगर उन 65 में आपने अच्छा पैसा बनाया और जो मिस्टेक्स हैं वो बहुत बड़ी ना हो।
And the structure of a mutual fund is, let's say you have 10 lakh to invest, and if you buy 10 stocks worth 1 lakh each, and if 3 also go to zero, yet if you have made those 3, 4, 5 calls right, mathematically you compensate for the mistakes you did.
And most mutual funds, आपने तो 10 स्टॉक का एग्जांपल दिया, we are holding typically 40, 50, 60.
So in a typical mutual fund scheme, you are holding 40, 50 stocks.
40, 50, 60
Maybe you can go wrong on 4, 5 stocks.
You'll go
and
wrong.
the moment you go wrong and you realize it, you correct the mistake.
And we have different, तो वही होगा that अब you'll go wrong, you won't correct it immediately because you don't know if you're going wrong.
Right.
So, you know, you have to have some real belief and reason to understand why you're going wrong. So you also don't want to be too rash in your decision making.
You take your own time.
You have to take time to take decisions.
But you do get feelers and signals.
And you do understand, you do research, you ask the company questions. But you can't be rash in your decision making also.
Okay. Radhika, what portion of your net worth is invested in your own mutual fund company and mutual fund schemes?
What percentage of my net worth is invested in mutual funds?
Your own mutual fund company.
Okay, my own mutual fund company would be about 65 to 70%. Mutual funds and aggregate would be about 95%.
Are you telling me, and I'm sure the kind of success you are, your net worth is very royal, right? You're saying 95% of your own net worth, जो आपका investable surplus है, आपका पैसा mutual funds में है.
I'll tell you something that will surprise you.
Yeah.
In my whole life, I've started working in 2005. I have never held a single stock, Indian or US, with the exception of Edelweiss, because I'm
Come on,
a
Radhika. One day Sahil walks into your cabin, says, "This is a multi-bagger. Buy it." You'll not be tempted.
I have never held, neither me or actually my husband, who's also in the same industry, never held a stock outside of our one ESOP.
आप mutual fund के अलावा invest नहीं करते हो.
And I many reasons. One is that I don't have time. Like most of us, we have very busy
You have
lives.
people like Sahil, you can ask them, tell me one multi-bagger, right?
Well, firstly, there are rules. Firstly, if you are a fund professional,
Okay.
whether it's me or Sahil,
हाँ.
there are lot of provisions by the regulator, जिसकी मैंने बात की थी SEBI,
SEBI,
to ensure कि हम ऐसी चीज ना करें जिससे हमारे इन्वेस्टर्स को डिसएडवांटेज हो।
तो साहिल एक स्टॉक अपने म्यूचुअल फंड में लेता है और अगले दिन वो स्टॉक खुद के पोर्टफोलियो में नहीं ले सकता
पहले मुझे बता सकते, लाइक से व्हाट कुड हैपन इज साहिल कुड टेल मी जस्ट वी आर फ्रेंड्स ओवर लंच के Radhika, I'm going to buy XYZ stock in my portfolio. I buy it before. That is grossly illegal.
This is something for viewers, let me decide, known as front run.
This is front run and this is illegal.
This is illegal.
Yeah.
You will be out of your job, out of your career. Everything will go to Sahil. Even you cannot buy something.
Yeah. Even I can't buy anything.
You can't buy.
Any stock that we have to buy, we have to take approval of our legal and compliance officer. And so most of us don't want to get, see, because our reputation and our careers are too important. And we are simple people with simple lives.
Yes.
The second,
and as Warren Buffett says, it takes 20 years to build a reputation. In 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, not even 20 minutes.
Not even 20 minutes.
The second reason is, you know, even if we could, we are getting everything we want from mutual funds. I buy his small cap fund, I buy mid cap fund, I buy our balanced advantage fund. I'm getting wonderful returns. I'm getting wonderful returns without having to spend any time because my time is very valuable to me.
And without being stressful about it.
I'm not stressed. My life is stressful enough. I'm the CEO of a large company. I have a young 1-year-old son. I have parents. I have all the things that all of you have in life. When I can get this done passively, why do it anywhere else?
So 95% you told me of your total investable surplus, your net worth is in mutual funds. 65% is in your own
mutual fund.
So you eat at your own restaurant.
Absolutely.
And you're confident about your chefs.
In fact, one of the reasons I eat at my own restaurant is I'm most confident about my own chefs, right? I know what my chefs are doing.
Okay.
I know where they can go right. I know where they can go wrong. So of course I should eat at my own restaurant. मुझे तो जैसे आप अपने घर में, if I ask you,
Yeah.
where do you eat 80% of your diet?
Yeah.
In your house?
Yeah.
In your house?
Yeah.
Why do you eat? Because आपको पता है ना तेल कौन सा है, मसाला कौन सा है,
हाँ.
बाहर क्यों नहीं
तो
खाते
इधर
हो?
आपको पूरा इंग्रेडिएंट्स पता है.
मुझे इंग्रेडिएंट पता है, मुझे शेफ पता है, मुझे पता है वो कितना तेल डालेगा, कैसे फ्राई करेगा, कितना हेल्थी बनाएगा, पुराना क्या है. So of course I should eat in my own home.
Okay, ठीक है. Radhika, you have two very unique products, okay, of which I am a fan also. One is known as a balance advantage fund, which is a hybrid product. Which mixes debt and equity. Okay, and other is a maiden opportunity fund. Only equity mutual fund, correct me if I'm wrong, which invest in IPOs.
Yes.
So एक school of thought, एक set of investor वो है राधिका, you are also old in the industry, where हम सिर्फ IPO में invest करते हैं. अब वो lot कम हो गया है, तो वो investor बनने से अच्छा better है कि they give you money in your IPO or now re-christened as maiden opportunities fund. Why don't you talk about these two products?
So I talk about maiden opportunities. It's now called Edelweiss recently listed IPO fund.
Yeah.
ये क्या करता है? It invests in the last 100 companies which have come for IPO. Last 100.
Okay.
Now as you know, India is a emerging economy. तो बहुत सारे sectors हैं जो अभी हमारी कैपिटल मार्केट्स में जो 500
यूनिवर्स में
है ही नहीं,
आए ही नहीं है.
like India's biggest exchange, National Stock Exchange,
Right.
is not a listed company yet,
Right.
but one day it will be a listed company. So all these जिनको मैं कहती हूँ new economy companies,
Right.
they come to the market for IPO, just like we have Sahil who looks at mid and small cap companies. We have someone who studies these companies.
Okay.
Now आमतौर से you can invest in some of these IPOs yourself.
Yeah.
But we have seen when retail investors invest in IPOs, they usually do a terrible job.
Yeah.
वो क्या देखते हैं, न्यूज़ देखते हैं, ग्रे मार्केट प्रीमियम देखते हैं और हमेशा गलत IPO
जो अभी रिसेंटली प्लेटफॉर्म कंपनीज के साथ हुआ,
वो एग्जैक्टली
और एक बहुत बड़े इंश्योरेंस कंपनी के साथ.
हाँ, तो वो हम लोग क्या करते हैं, DRHP आजकल जो डॉक्यूमेंट आता है जो कंपनी
Draft
फाइल
red
करती
herring
है,
prospectus.
हाँ, एज ही सेड IPO कंपनी का हिस्ट्री तो होता
तो
नहीं है.
आप you evaluate IPO companies as detailed as Sahil would
Actually
evaluate a
more
typical,
detailed.
more detailed.
Because in Sahil's companies there is history. There is management calls, earnings, thus you meet, you hear, there's market feedback. Here there is no information.
Yes.
So we read the DRHPs are often 500 pages.
So SEBI requires a company which is coming for IPO
To have a DRHP.
to have a draft red herring prospectus, which is a 500,000 page document.
So we read
जिसमें
that.
all the history about the company.
We go meet the management. वहाँ भी हम channel checks करते हैं.
And a typical investor cannot afford
A
to go and
typical
meet the
investor will
management.
not even be able to read so many DRHPs. Forget meeting any management. Management का तो आपको access ही नहीं मिलेगा.
True.
तो हम ये सब करते हैं. अब आई थिंक पिछले 5-6 सालों में जब से हमने ये फंड चलाया, कुछ 250 कंपनीज आई हैं IPO की, हमने सिर्फ 80 में इन्वेस्ट किया है.
In last 5-6 years, 250 companies came for IPO, of which you invested in 80. And how is the result, Radhika?
So the fund has done very well. If you look at most large cap funds etc., the fund has outperformed. 3 साल की हिस्ट्री तो बहुत अच्छी रही है. सो इट हैज़ बिन वन ऑफ आवर मोस्ट सक्सेसफुल फंड्स. दूसरा इस फंड का ये वो है कि मैंने म्यूचुअल फंड्स की बात की, इसका जो पोर्टफोलियो ऑफ कंपनीज है इज वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम ऑल अदर फंड्स, बिकॉज इट हैज अ वेरी यूनिक यूनिवर्स ऑफ.
So there's no portfolio overlap.
There is no overlap.
If you buy a typical large or mid cap fund, you will find similar companies.
Because those hold the top 500 companies that Sahil talked about. These hold newly listed companies.
So should I, going forward, stop investing in IPOs altogether? Just give money to your, now the name of the fund is
recently listed.
Edelweiss recently listed IPO fund, and forget about एक तो एप्लीकेशन करते तो मिलता नहीं है. इफ इट इज अ गुड इशू यू विल नॉट
ऊपर
गेट
से फिर आप क्या करते हो, आप इन्वेस्ट करते हो, आपको एप्लीकेशन मिलता है, अलॉटमेंट मिलता है, आप बेच देते हो. व्हेन अ लॉट ऑफ द रिटर्न इज एक्चुअली इन होल्डिंग ऑन.
You are not buying to sell on listing.
No, we don't buy.
You are buying to hold it for. So Sahil, you will not buy a IPO, not invest in an IPO if you don't want to hold for 3, 4, 5 years.
In fact,
right?
like if you look at Page Industries, उसका IPO 2007 में हुआ, and it was a disaster on IPO. I think the stock was 30% down on IPO.
On listing.
If you were an investor, you would have lost money.
Yes.
But Page Industries has created huge wealth.
Page Industries is jockey.
Yeah,
right?
Page
Yes.
Industries is jockey.
Right.
So the magic is in selection of IPOs and also holding these companies.
So all those people who say मैं IPO में invest करता हूँ, they should forget that.
And this
we have
is
a team. We can buy your team at a very cheap price.
Correct.
And take advantage of the wonderful team you have.
और दूसरा आपने BAF का पूछा, दिस इज माय फेवरेट फंड, सो आई एम वेरी, सी आई थिंक
You invested in that?
I think if you look at my investment, 50% of my portfolio at any time will be BAF.
50% of your money is in BAF.
I love it. मैंने BAF में SIP की है एंड पिछले 6 साल में मेरा compounded annual return is about 14.5%. Just doing an SIP into
And
BAF.
it's not a full equity fund.
It's not
So
a
you're
full.
almost matching or beating the Sensex
I
and
am,
Nifty
yeah, I am me.
with a lesser risk.
Yes,
So
in
the
fact,
risk adjusted return is way less.
in fact मैं आपको बताऊं, मार्च 2020 में जब कोविड हुआ, निफ्टी फेल 30%, दिस फंड फेल 13%.
Yeah.
तो मुझे तो बहुत शांति मिली.
Again, can you repeat that?
In March 2020,
14 Jan 22, 20th March 2020.
yeah, that
When COVID came to
the
India.
COVID period,
Yes.
Nifty fell 30%
Yeah.
in a period.
Yeah.
This fund fell 12-13%.
When Nifty fell 20 at 30, you fell 20. So I believe as
I
Warren
fell
Buffett
12-13.
says,
Yeah.
12-13. Warren Buffett says there are 2 rules of investing. Rule number 1, don't lose money.
And second is also don't lose money.
Second is, remember, don't forget rule number 1.
And you know, most people's life, हमें क्या चाहिए लाइफ में? We want that we create some wealth, कुछ बढ़ा तो पैसे की,
Yes.
लेकिन we also want कि बहुत बुरे टाइम में ना पैसा खत्म ना हो जाए,
Accident नहीं चाहिए.
हाँ, बचत भी हो.
हाँ.
तो I call it बढ़ातन बचत. इस फंड में क्या होता है, about 30 to 80% of the money, depending on the fund manager's choice, can be in equity. Balance is in safe instruments. तो जब मार्केट अच्छा होता है तो हम इक्विटी में ज़्यादा पैसा लगाते हैं, जब मार्केट बुरा होता है तो इक्विटी में
तो
कम
अच्छा
लगाते हैं.
और बुरा को एक्सप्लेन कीजिए, प्लीज एक्सप्लेन इन इंग्लिश.
तो मैं आपको
व्हाट इज गुड एंड व्हाट इज
सिंपल
बैड?
एनालॉजी देती हूँ. अगर आपको मुंबई से नागपुर जाना है रोड से,
समृद्धि वी टेक समृद्धि एक्सप्रेस.
हाँ, आपका तो अपना एक्सप्रेस है ना. से यू हैव लेस नाइस रोड्स देन नागपुर, ये तो गडकरी जी का वो है, तो हाँ, दिस इज रोड कैपिटल. सर बॉम्बे टू पूना जाना है.
ओके.
कुछ दिन ऐसे होते हैं जब हाईवे क्लियर होता है, रोड बहुत अच्छी होती है, मौसम बहुत अच्छा होता है, ट्रैफिक नहीं होता, तब आप क्या करेंगे गाड़ी का? आप स्पीड बढ़ाएंगे, है ना. लेकिन कुछ टाइम ऐसा होता है जब बारिश होती है, रोड पे जैम होता है, खराब हो जाती है, पॉटहोल होते हैं, तब आप क्या करेंगे? स्पीड घटाएंगे. तो BAF ऐसे ही करता है. इसका एक इंडिकेटर है जो कहता है अभी मार्केट के हालात अच्छे हैं, मार्केट बढ़ रहा है, ऊपर नीचे नहीं है, वेदर चॉपी नहीं है, मार्केट की हेल्थ अच्छी है, तो हम इक्विटी ज़्यादा रखेंगे. बुरा है तो कम रखेंगे.
तो आप ऑल टाइम हाई ऑल टाइम लो पे नहीं जाते. आप मार्केट, यू वैल्यू द मार्केट. इफ यू थिंक मार्केट इज मोर एक्सपेंसिव देन व्हाट द एवरेज मार्केट हैज बीन ओवर द लास्ट कपल ऑफ इयर्स, यू रिड्यूस द इक्विटी लेवल.
वी लुक एट मार्केट हेल्थ.
Okay.
कि मार्केट, एंड हाउ डू वी जज मार्केट हेल्थ? मार्केट हेल्थ इज, हैज मार्केट डन वेल रिसेंटली? मार्केट में बहुत शार्प अप और डाउन हो रहा है या नहीं?
वोलेटाइल.
हाँ, वॉलेटाइल है या नहीं?
हाँ.
अगर कम वॉलेटाइल है, अच्छा कर रहा है, देन वी टेक अप इक्विटी. अगर बुरा माहौल है, देन वी टेक इट डाउन.
Tell me, is BAF also for ultra HNIs, very rich people, very prosperous people? Is it a good product for them?
It is a fabulous product for them, but they will never admit it. I'll tell you why.
And I believe it is better than any structured product out there.
It is fantastic for many reasons. One, structured products don't have liquidity. आप मन चाहे दिन पैसा नहीं निकाल सकते, और इसकी बहुत वैल्यू है. इट्स लाइक आई ऑलवेज से, स्मॉल कैप फंड को लोग अनलिस्टेड वेंचर कैपिटल फंड से कंपेयर करते हैं. आई ऑलवेज बिलीव स्मॉल कैप फंड इज बेटर, क्योंकि इसमें लिक्विडिटी, आप कल चाहे पैसा
You can exit, हाँ.
साहिल कुछ नहीं कर सकता.
What I like about the mutual fund is that, you know, I believe one of the rule of investing is your exit door should always be open.
Correct.
If you want to get out, if I believe Sahil is not doing a good job,
Then you
I want to
exit.
move to another fund, I can exit like this.
Yeah.
Okay, in a structured product or even in a PMS or in AIF,
It's harder to
relatively,
get
it is
out.
very hard to get out.
ऐसे क्या, BAF I think is like दाल चावल और खिचड़ी in our Indian diets.
Okay.
It is very healthy for us. It is very simple. But now when you become an HNI in life, you're like, यार मैं खिचड़ी खाऊंगा. But reality is,
Glamour नहीं है उसमें.
when you're sick, your doctor tells you go eat khichdi,
Okay.
because that is actually good for your
And
body.
even in good times, you can eat it.
And even on good times you can eat it. It makes for a good, nutritious, low-cost meal.
Thank you for listening to the AUM Finance podcast. Remember that all investments are subject to market and other risks, and one should read offer docs and other documents carefully before investing.